Hello and welcome to my Yu-Gi-Oh channel. Make sure to subscribe for more Yu-Gi-Oh content. So today we're looking at the secret rares which are in the brand new mini box that's of Duel Links called Sign of Harpies. So this was the card that I was mentioning in the previous episode. This is number 12, Crimson Shadow Armor Ninja. I remember the character's name. His name is Kaze. He was a student of Master Roku. Initially was very kind-hearted and became too trusting of people. And then as a result of that, someone betrayed him heavily and he became very dark. The number got attracted to this darkness and then kind of took him over. It is an Earth Attribute Warrior type Xyz monster. It's a rank 5 with 2,400 attack and 1,700 defense. Requires 2 level 5 monsters, and the ability is once per turn during either player's turn, detach 1 Xyz material from this card. This turn, face up ninja monsters you control cannot be destroyed by battle or by card effects. Okay, so this is useful from a couple of points. Firstly, this can be activated during either yours or your opponent's turn, which means it has that quick effect ability. It provides you with that level of protection for all of your ninja monsters, not a specific one, so long as it has ninja in its name. And there are also other cards. For example, there's one that steals from the graveyard, which can treat your opponent's monster as a ninja card, in which case it can gain the benefit of this effect as well. Whilst it's not the greatest effect, by being able to protect your monsters, you're then able to go into further strategies and protect your monsters and react to whatever your opponent has. Digasto Emerald is a wind attribute rock type Xyz monster. It's a rank 4 with 1,800 attack and 800 defense. Requires 2 level 4 monsters, and its effect is once per turn you could detach 1 material from this card, then activate one of these effects. Target 3 monsters in your graveyard, shuffle all 3 into the deck, then draw 1 card, or target 1 non-effect monster in your graveyard and special summon that target. For anyone who isn't aware, in Yu-Gi-Oh! Zeal we had something called the rank 4 Chill Box. These were a series of number monsters that are rank 4, easy enough to summon, some of the more powerful ones, which were staple cards that let you access different things, either recovering resources, special summoning things, or had quite devastating effects in and of themselves. This was one of the key cards, simply because it's able to shuffle back your cards as though it's a Pot of Avarice. At that time, I think Pot of Avarice was banned. It didn't have the errata yet, and so it was just outright banned. This was the nearest thing you could have to that type of effect. Not as good, because you get 1 draw, and also you're shuffling 3 monsters, not 5, but it was better than nothing. The secondary part of the effect to target a non-effect monster really wasn't used unless you're going into it an additional Xyz play. You might use it for the whole Rescue Rabbit engine. Other than that, it was a bit forgettable for the secondary ability. Harpy Channeler is a wind attribute winged beast type level 4 with 1,400 attack and 1,300 defense. The effect is you can discard 1 Harpy card, special summon 1 Harpy monster from your deck in face-up defense position, except Harpy Channeler. You can only use this effect of Harpy Channeler once per turn. While you control a dragon-type monster, this card's level becomes 7. This card's name becomes Harpy Lady while it is on the field or in the graveyard. So this was one of those devastating cards which let you go into Draco Sack very easily. If you think you've got Harpy's Dragon, Harpy's Pet Dragon is a level 7 monster and that's a dragon type as well. Alternatively, even though you have that as an archetypal card, you could just control another level 7 dragon type monster and instantly go into that as well as big number 11 Big Eye. The problem with this card is it's another Harpy card. It's quite generic, and okay, you can special summon cards, but actually it does use up your resources because you do need to discard to special summon that monster. If your opponent has anything that can deal with multiple cards which can be treated with the same name, this is one of the big downsides of the deck, similar to something like the Cyber Dragons, where they treat each other as Cyber Dragon whilst they're either on the field or sometimes in the graveyard. The Harpist is a wind attribute winged beast level 4 with 1,700 attack and 600 defense. This card's name becomes Harpy Lady while it is on the field or in the graveyard. You can only use each of these effects of Harpy Harpist once per turn. When this card is normal summoned, you can target 1 winged beast monster you control, other than this card, and 1 face-up monster your opponent controls, return them to the hand. During the end phase, if this card is in the graveyard because it was sent there this turn, you can add one level 4 winged beast type monster with 1500 or less attack from your deck to your hand. What this card is good for doing is returning itself and returning another card and your opponent's monster. So if they've had to go into a lot of resources to summon that monster, especially from, say, the extra deck, there's more of a problem for them than it is for you. If you just normal summoned another monster, then that's perfectly fine as a requirement. So long as it's basically not this, and so long as it's a winged beast type, you meet the conditions very easily. Just think of all the other Harpy Ladies. Everything basically except for Harpy Lady Sisters meets those conditions. The secondary part of the effect is also quite good because it helps search out for another for your Harpy Ladies, even though it has to be during the end phase, and this is the disadvantage, and I can see why they've done this, because they don't want to overpower the card, but it does mean that you've secured a new Harpy Lady going for your next turn. Harpy Perfumer is a wind attribute winged beast level 4 with 1400 attack and 1300 defense. This card's name becomes Harpy Lady while on the field or in the graveyard. If this card is normal or special summoned, you can add one spell or trap card from your deck to your hand that specifically lists the card Harpy Lady Sisters in its text. You controlled a level 5 or higher Harpy monster. When you activated this effect, you can also add a second such card with a different name from the first. You can only use this effect of Harpy Perfumer once per turn. So this is a win harder card. If you've already been in a position where you're at an advantage, you've got your Harpy Lady Sisters already on the field, you can go for another Elegant Egotist, for example. That's a card that supports it. There's also another card, I think it's called Triangle Attack, or Triangular Attack, something like that, which makes your monsters become like 2700 attack, and they cannot be destroyed by effects for the turn. You do get the additional benefit if you do have Harpy Lady Sisters on the field, as you can search for a secondary card, so it just doubles and piles on your advantage. FA Hangon Mac is a wind attribute machine type level 4 with 0 attack and 1800 defense. Its effect is gains attack equal to its level times 300, and it's unaffected by activated effects from an opponent's monster whose original level / rank is lower than this card's level. Each time an FA spell or trap card or an effect is activated, you can increase this card's level by 1. If this card is level 7 or higher, a card sent to your opponent's graveyard is banished instead. So this is very much how the FAs work. They really always want to be pushing their levels up. If they go to the level 7 or beyond, they gain additional effects which make them even more devastating. But even as they are continually raising themselves to be a little bit more powerful. Of course, this is one of the first ones, considering it's only going to start off with 1200 attack. That's fine. Anything rank 4 or level 4 or lower cannot affect this card with its abilities. So you think of things like Utopia, that wouldn't work even if this is as weak as it can be. And every time you're using these effects, even every time your opponent is using an effect, you keep gaining those levels and you keep gaining those attack stats, and you get to the point where you're able to macrocosmos your opponent. FA Auto Navigator is a wind attribute machine type tuner monster. It's a level 1 with 0 attack and 0 defense. If this card is in your hand or graveyard, you can target one FA monster you control whose current level is higher than its original level. Special summon this card, and if you do, reduce that target's level by the difference between its current and original level. And if you do that, this card's level becomes equal to the amount reduced. If this card is normal or special summoned, you can add one FA field spell from your deck to your hand. You can only use each effect of FA Auto Navigator once per turn. So the purpose of this card is, for starters, it's actually additional support for the FAs. Originally, they had a block release of their archetype, and then I think there was some sort of promotional campaign, which meant that I think 2 or 3 additional cards, I think this and a synchro monster, were included to beef up the deck. This gets rid of and resets some of your monsters' levels. You might consider that to be a bad thing, considering that the longer the FAs have been out and the more effects that they've been witness to, the more likely their levels are going to be higher, the higher their attack points. But that's not always a good thing. You can go to a point where the levels are too high and you cannot synchro summon using those cards. This is where this card comes into play. It basically steals those levels that your other FA monsters have gained, transfers it to its own, and then you have the opportunity to then sync up using relevant levels. The additional effect to search for a field spell is neither here nor there. Its primary ability is to adjust levels to supplement further synchro summoning. King is a water attribute spellcaster type level 7 with 0 attack and 0 defense. The effect, you contribute 1 monster or no monsters to normal summon, but not set this card. The attack of this card becomes the combined original attack of the tributed monsters. Neither player can tribute cards. So this is very similar to something like Maju Gazette, who gains that same effect. I think it was the original monster that did this. Of the monsters that were tributed, depending on what you tribute, you're going to get that advantage or you're not. If you choose to just summon this outright, yes, you can stop cards being tributed through its secondary ability, but your opponent is just going to run over this so easily with any of their monsters and then get their abilities back in the future. Alternatively, if you go the other route and you've tributed things like a Blue Eyes White Dragon, or things that might be more difficult to summon from the deck and have resulted in using multiple resources, you could be susceptible to various traps such as Bottomless Trap Hole, Drowning Mirror Force, various other cards which can interact and destroy this card, and then you've invested all your resources into bringing out something that you've essentially wasted. This card was actually used by Adrian Gecko in Season 3 of Yu-Gi-Oh! GX. He actually faced Yugioh with this card, and it did have a similar effect, and there was actually an additional support card for it. I think there was a field spell, which allowed this card to keep reviving to a different monster zone. However, if that monster had been destroyed in that zone was no longer being able to be used. But I think it also had the ability of the field spell that once all 5 zones have been filled, they could do something. I think there was also a sword card which had an effect where if it gained like 5 counters, it could do 4,000 life points worth of burn effect damage. But those cards never actually saw physical release. Lightning Vortex is a normal spell card with the effect discard 1 card, destroy all face-up monsters your opponent controls. So you can think of this as a more restrictive form of Raigeki. Yes, it has the ability to potentially wipe out all of your opponent's monsters, but if they're running a defensive deck such as Subterras, who are famously known for kind of flipping up and then flipping back to defense mode, being face down, that means you're not really doing anything. The other thing is, even if you want to try and force your opponent's monsters to be face up, you're going to either have to run very specific support to do that, or you're going to have your monsters attack into everything your opponent has that is set, risking taking heavy amounts of battle damage, and then not being able to activate this until your next turn, considering that we don't have a main phase 2 within Duel Links. Whilst it does have its uses, if your opponent happens to have face-up monsters and they're trying to beat you, and then you randomly top deck this card, it does have a massive downside to it, and so it's inadvised to be running this, if at all. Potentially maybe 1 copy just as a side. And the final secret rare card is Spiritual Wind Art Miyabi. It's a normal trap card with the effect tribute 1 wind monster, then target 1 card your opponent controls, place that opponent's card on the bottom of their deck. So this is useful if your opponent has any key cards out, because it makes it really difficult to search for. It goes to the bottom of their deck, and unless they have cards which enable them to shuffle their deck, it's going to be a point before they can, actually get to it. The kind of disadvantage of it is you do have to tribute a wind attribute monster, so you're having to do a -1 when you consider that you're just getting rid of one of your opponent's monsters. But the good thing is, if they've gone into investing into that card, actually this might just break you even.